Hi, everyone. We have a really solid group here, so I'm ready to go and excited to get started. For those of you that are joining us, just wanted to make sure that you're in the right place. This is going to be a Notion kind of live stream Build With Me webinar that is specifically aimed at people interested in kind of HR or people operations in order to give a really great employee onboarding experience in Notion. And so it doesn't have to only be HR and people folks. It can also be team leads or anyone who is onboarding many people at once and they want to give a great experience and figure out how to build that entire workflow in Notion. And so we're going to hop in and get started. My name is Monica Perez and I am a customer success manager here at Notion. I was one of the first customer success managers at Notion, and I work with enterprises of all different sizes. And over that time, I've obviously been on like dozens of demos and webinars and onboarding calls, and I was able to see how a really great employee onboarding experience can be built in Notion. And so I wanted to kind of share that expertise and have you follow along to see how you can easily build it and how we can build it together. I'm also joined today by my colleague, Andrea. She will be answering your questions in the chat. Andrea, do you want to say hi?
Hey everyone, I'm Andrea. Oh, wow. I'm Andrea, and send us all of your questions because I'll just be manning the Q&A chat and making sure that all your questions are answered. Great to see you all.
Thanks, Andrea. Yep, just like she said, this is pretty interactive. It's going to be a fun time together. And so we want to make sure that you are actually getting the most out of this session. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat as we go along. You can put it into the Q&A box and we'll get through them throughout the course of this whole demo. And it doesn't have to be a question. It can be something specific like, can you please show that again? Or can you explain that again if you missed it? This is totally for you. And so today, the agenda for this employee onboarding is kind of to address how we can fix the problem of like previously kind of fragmented or difficult onboarding experiences. When you're onboarding a new employee, that's the first impression that they're going to get of your organization, right? And a lot of times employees remember that onboarding experience. They remember what it was like. And so a lot of it has to do with how they're easily able to feel confident in their work and knowing that they have kind of the tools and the information to succeed. And so the part of building this workflow in Notion is to kind of centralize and standardize all of the information that they'll need to find to give all of your new employees kind of a uniform onboarding experience. We want all of the information to live in Notion so that way all of that lives in a single place. They can kind of answer their own questions, they can self-serve information, and you become more efficient. And of course, this is what helps it scale. You can go from onboarding, as your team grows from 10 to 100 people, having a really good streamlined onboarding experience will help with the scaling process. So for those of you that are in HR or people management, you're probably managing a large pipeline of candidates, and you probably care about kind of giving those new hires a great like first 30 days experience. And so that's what we're going to build out today and show how we can walk them through that entire process. We'll also cover things like how to build a great wiki or documentation hub in Notion, and even things like how to build a full employee directory. And so not only do we care about the first 30 days, but even past those 30 days, we want to make sure that all of your employees have a great experience as they mature and can get access to everything they need going forward. So we will hop in. Someone in the chat is asking, do we have a session for project managers? We actually do. I did a build with me about project managers. And so we can probably share that with you. Andrea, if you can help me with that. Great. So I'm going to hop into the Notion workspace. For those of you that don't know what Notion is, Notion is considered an all-in-one workspace for your documents, your wiki, your task and project management, and team collaboration. At Notion, we fundamentally believe that it's important to bring everything together in one place so that you can consolidate all of your tools and stay connected. And on top of that, doing so is highly, highly customizable and flexible. you can really do it yourself and make it into what you need it to be. It's the building blocks. And so I'm really excited to show you some examples of that today. All right. So right now we are hopping into what is referred to as a Notion workspace. This entire area is a workspace in Notion, and this particular workspace is the workspace of an imaginary company called Fig. Fig is actually the Notion dog, our office dog, but we have named this workspace and this imaginary company Fig.io, as you can see right here. As we hop into the Fig workspace, we can see that they've set up their left-hand navigation really, really well. And you're able to see these top level pages. We refer to these as top level pages, which is right now serving as each function's kind of homepage. So we have the overall homepage, we have the people team's homepage, the marketing team's homepage, engineering, sales, and so on and so forth. And every other piece of content, you can click the toggle to expand. You can see that there's a wide range of subpages that live within the top level homepage. And this structure is really up to best practice because it has the top level page as like the highest level of categorization that makes sense at this company, in this case, different teams. And then all of the content is linked within. And so this is really interesting because this is where Notion is not just like a series of random documents that might live in a random folder that you forgot the name to, but it's actually more of an intranet or a wiki where everything is interlinked, everything is surfaced really nicely. So I don't have to try to remember what I'm looking for. Everything lives underneath the homepage and I can click through and find the information that I need. It's very easily discoverable. And so for this particular workspace, they have something which is called Fig Home. This is a homepage. This is where every new employee might land. And as you can see, it's very clear what the documentation is and how they can easily find it. So if I started at this company today, I can see that there is a kind of document about the history of the organization, one about the mission, vision, and values, other things like an employee directory and an office manual. And it's really nicely surfaced here for me to look through. This is all built in Notion by simply starting to type and create subpages. So for example, if I go into the mission and values document, I can see that the company has nicely laid out its mission, vision, and values. This content in Notion, for those of you that have not used Notion, it's as easy as directly typing onto this page and starting to build the various building blocks on this page. The good thing about this is that it's not like a one-off document or like a Google Doc that you have to link out to, but rather this is a living document and the latest version is always going to be here. If you have different iterations of this, or if you are seeing like the various versions that this has gone through, you'll rest assured that the one that they're navigating to is the most recent version of this page. I'm getting some questions in the chat about, is this workspace going to be available publicly? I want to make a note that if you're joining this session, after this session, you'll not only get the recording, but you'll get access to the templates to build out what we're building today. So thanks for that, Roy. So this is an example of one documentation that can live in your home. Maybe the employee needs to see something like the company history. So I can click into this document and it's nicely laid out the history of this organization. So it goes through the timeline, the various times that this company was maybe featured in the news or media that has come out about this company. And as you can see with Notion pages, we support lots of different types of content on a page. It's not just text, but you can even do things like embedding videos, embedding images, screenshots, and so on and so forth. As you build out a page in Notion, you can simply start adding the content to the page by going anywhere on this page, for example, here. And as you can see, the cursor is always going to prompt you to type / for a command. So I can type / here, and then this will pull up the full extensive menu of all of the items. In this case, we refer to them as blocks, all of the various blocks that you can add to a specific Notion page. So it's kind of like you're building a mini website. Any given page can support not only text, but can support lots of really cool other pieces of content, like a to-do list, a bulleted list, and then you can go on to see how we can embed a table, Kanban board, or even things, as I mentioned, like an image that you want to upload, a YouTube video, a file, a piece of audio, and so on and so forth. So all of this can be added to the page simply by clicking, typing, formatting your content, and selecting the block that you want to add. Someone is asking whether you can import or export your content into Notion. I think that's a really great question. If you're looking to consolidate everything into Notion and making Notion into your true documentation hub, then that means that we are kind of taking it wherever it lives in other tools and consolidating it, right? And so we do have that option in Notion. There is this import option. You can select import, and it pulls up this module where you can see the various other places that you can import your information from. Even if you don't see a particular tool here that you're looking for, as long as you've exported it from that tool in a format that we support, for example, if you exported it as a Word document or as a CSV file or any sort of those more plain types of files, then you can easily import it into Notion. It doesn't have to be the case that the tool is listed here. It can be these basic file types as well. But things like Trello boards or Asana, I've personally seen the Trello import. It's really nice. It completely is a one-to-one and displays the Kanban style board exactly the same in Notion. That's a great question. Cool. Going back to the homepage, as I mentioned, the other functions also have their homepages with their contents linked within. So let's say you want to navigate to the people page. This is probably the one that's most relevant to the audience here. The people team has created their homepage really nicely with their documentation that lives within here. So they might have important documentation that is constantly referenced, like maybe a diversity and inclusion policy. I can quickly navigate to that, and I can see how this page supports all of the content within, even things like linking out to external articles and videos, and then everything related to the policy. I'll show one more, maybe something like a overview of the perks that you offer. You can look into that, and it breaks down the various perks. Okay, so this kind of is what I wanted to introduce, which is basically the navigation that can exist in Notion, how documentation can be housed here, can be updated here, and then can be organized with these various different sections, top level pages and subpages in order to have everything kind of logically flowing and surfacing right when you need it and where you need it. There's no hiding of information. The next part of this Build With Me is I want to show how we can take this to the next level and really build actual workflows in Notion and dynamic types of content in Notion. One of my favorites is how to build an employee directory. So I'll navigate to this employee directory. You can see that this employee directory has been built out here. And this particular directory that we're looking at is a type of display that we support in Notion, which is called a gallery. You can see that this is called gallery view. And a gallery view, all that it is kind of like a grid of cards that prioritizes showing an image and then showing various tags or pieces of information below. So you can think of it kind of like a Pinterest board of sorts. And in this case, it works really well to display an employee directory. I can open up any of these cards. So I can open up this first card of Eduardo. And it has all of these various, we refer to them as properties. It has all of these various property types that helps summarize information about this employee. In this case, Eduardo is from Sydney. His department is design. His job title is product designer. I can see things like his join date, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. And then within the body of this card, we can see the photo and a mini bio. The body of this card is actually a full page in Notion as well. So you can put any content that a Notion page supports can exist in this card. Here's another one with Delaney, same type of information and a bio. So how do we get to this point? How can we build this gallery that looks really nice with each employee's headshot and information about themselves? We can do that using our / command menu and using the option which is called gallery. So I'm going to start a new blank page just for the sake of this. I'm going to open this as a full page. And by default, you can start a new blank page in Notion by clicking on New Page in the bottom left. And it will just take you to a blank page and you're looking at our Notion editor. This is called the editor, and this is where you can begin to build. And so I'm going to create really quickly an employee directory. The cursor will prompt me to type /. In this case, I'm going to type / and then gallery. And it gives me the option to have an inline gallery or a full page gallery. In this case, I'll do an inline gallery. By default, we just give you a basic outline of cards, but of course you can customize them to what you need. So I'll just open up the first card. And this is where I can start creating the various properties and making the structure of these cards exactly what I need. So this is probably not going to be called page 1. It's going to be the employee's name. And then I can decide on the properties that I want to start building. In this case, I want to build one that's called team name. And I'm going to turn this property type into a type which is a select. It allows you to select from a list of options. And we can also determine these options on the fly. So the team name, I'm going to start creating the various team names. One is going to be sales. Another team name that we support is maybe HR. And another team name that we support is maybe marketing. And I've created these tags on the fly, and now they will serve as the drop-down list, what I can choose from. Maybe aside from the team name, I need their title. Instead of a select option, it's just going to be a text property because I want to freely be able to type their title. So maybe HR manager. And as many properties as you need to add. So it can be something like their who reports to them, maybe they're a fun fact, maybe their LinkedIn URL, and so on and so forth. I can do something like their email. So I'll name this property email, and it's something like, employee name @fig.io. So you can see that I can start building the properties simply by adding a property, deciding what the property type will be, what type of information will it support, and then filling out the information accordingly. Then in the body, I can erase these blocks and I can put in the particular blocks that I want. Because this is a gallery view, we highly recommend putting an image because this is going to support images really nicely. So again, I will go in the body, I'll type /image, and it will allow me to upload an image from my desktop. You can also use a link. In this case, I'm going to choose one from my desktop. And here's an image of my new hire. So I close out of the card and you can see that it's been developed really nicely. I can open up the card and I can see the various information and properties that I filled out. And I can even toggle on the properties that I want to see displayed on this card. So I do want to see the email, the team name, and the title. So now I've toggled these on. The card is richly displaying this information. And you can see that as I go forward with this, this will end up being a very built out employee directory. So it will end up looking something like this. The great thing about building out directories and building out kind of these central databases of information is that you can link this information anywhere else. You can pull this gallery into any other part of Notion that you want. And because we created these properties with these tags and categories of information, we can even like filter based off of this information. So you can add a filter which says, show me all of the employees that are in San Francisco, or show me all of the employees that are on the sales team. So for example, I can navigate over to the sales team homepage. They've actually done a really good job of this. This is the sales team homepage. But as you can see, they actually have a section of their homepage where they are linking and embedding that team directory. As you can see, it's embedded right here. But in this case, I can quickly see that they've added a filter, and they've added a filter which says, show me the employees where their team is sales team. And so because of this, it's actually showing a more filtered down version of the overall employee directory. And it's showing me only the members on the sales team, which makes sense for the sales homepage. This is really important because once you have a central database like your employee directory with all of the employees in that one centralized location, that serves as your master source of truth. But because everything in Notion is connected, you can embed that directory anywhere else. You can filter it down. You can create a very customized view of the master, but you'll know that everything is always referencing back to the master gallery and that the information will always be updated in all places. So it's like one directory in many places. I'll pause for a second for any questions on building out a gallery or an employee directory. Cool, and thanks, Andrea, for all your help on answering those questions. The next part of this that I want to move into is taking Notion even a step further. Because Notion not only supports, as I mentioned, documentation and wiki, but it also supports things like directories and repositories of information. It also has project management features which allow you to manage what an onboarding flow could look like and moving candidates along that path through like a Kanban style board. And so if I navigate over to the people page, they actually have their materials here. They have onboarding templates, an onboarding pipeline, and an applicant tracker. I want to draw attention to the onboarding templates. Onboarding templates are awesome because you can templatize the way that the first 30 days of onboarding is done. You can even have a template for each function. So a template for all new marketing hires, all new sales hires, all new product hires, and have a template for each one. And then whenever you have a new hire, you just populate that template and they'll know exactly what they need to do in their first 30 days. Here's an example of one that has already been created, and then I'll work backwards to show you how we got there. So this is a sample onboarding template that we've created for an employee. Let's just call the employee Diego. For this onboarding template, as you can see, it's a board that takes them along these days' journey. And each column in this board is mapped out by this timeline. So we can see everything that they need to complete on day 1, everything that they need to complete on day 2, day 3, day 4, and then it can go on to week 2, week 3, and week 4. For the sake of this demo, I've built this out really quickly, but this can be as simple or as elaborate as you need. For each day's items, it's a card in Notion. And as I mentioned, because each card in Notion is actually a page in Notion, you can bring all of your materials and self-reference all of the resources that they should be looking at. So for example, this day 1 card, the first item is welcome to your onboarding. I can open up this card and I can see that we've created some properties here that I'm tracking for. So the status is in progress. It can be up to the candidate to move themselves along and set the status when this has been completed. The number of hours that this should take has been added here. In this case, I estimated this to take about a quarter of an hour. And then the urgency was set here. In this case, this should happen on day 1. The body of this card contains all of the information that they need. It's right here. So it says, welcome to onboarding. It kind of gives them a layout of what will be included in this onboarding and some questions for them to think about on day 1. Same is being done for all of the other cards. So the next step on their day 1 is to write their bio in the employee directory. I can open up this card and I can see that this was completed. It should take about half an hour and it should happen on day 1. And again, because Notion is that centralized wiki, I can say, hey, add your bio to the employee directory. By the way, here's a link to the employee directory that also lives in Notion. So everything can reference other places in Notion. In this case, I'll click here and it'll navigate to that employee directory that I showed you. Even things like, hey, the third step on day 1 is to read about the company policies. I can open up that card. I can see that it's in progress. I estimated it should take 2 hours. And again, we can reference all of that material in one single place. So I can say, make sure to read through all of the following items: company values, the history, all of these various policies. And again, it's up to the candidate to mark them as done. I've made them into checklist items, and they can check them off right here. Somebody is asking the question, if something is marked as completed, is there a notification where certain people are notified? There's lots of ways that you can do notifications in Notion. You can tag or @mention someone. So I can say and then name my colleague, and she'll be notified that I've commented on this specific card. So you can always ask the candidate to say, tag your HR manager once this is completed. Other things that you can do are you can connect the page to a specific Slack channel, and then all of the notifications will come in Slack about any updates to this page. You can also follow this page. If you personally want to follow your employees' progress, you can follow the page, and then all of the notifications about any changes to the page will come in your notifications inbox. The notifications inbox, by the way, is here on the left-hand all updates section. As you can see, I have 8 notifications. So I can always open this up to look at my notifications, and I can see anywhere that I was mentioned or tagged or any changes that were made. Again, either in my inbox or on pages that I'm following. So I don't want to spend too much time on notifications, but I do want to highlight that they can come in so many different ways, and you can customize how much information you want to be notified about. Going back to these cards again, I think it's just really nice that everything is in one single place. As a new employee, I would have a very positive experience. I would feel so much clarity in knowing exactly what I need to be doing in my first 4 weeks. And having all of the information here, I don't have to go scrambling around or asking to get access to certain things or trying to find out where things might live. So this can be going through the various days, the various weeks, and then the candidate can be marking them based off of the status. I also want to draw attention to a cool feature that I've implemented, which is I've added the number of hours that I believe each task should take. So 20, a quarter of an hour, half an hour, 2 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours. And then at the very top, it has this property, which is actually summarizing the total number of hours of all of the tasks in this column. And so the day 1 total sum of hours should be 5.75 hours. The day 2 total hours should be 6.5. The day 3 total hours should be 7 hours, and so on and so forth. And so how do we get to this point? How did we build out this template? Similar idea. It is a Kanban board. It's a type of board or visualization that we support in Notion. Just like we support the gallery view, we also support something called a Kanban board. And so I can start a new page. Again, I clicked on new page. I just want to start from 0. In this case, I'll call this onboarding template. And then I want to start with a Kanban board. So I'm going to type / and I'm going to type board. I want it to be inline. You can do inline or full page. Inline is okay for demo purposes. And by default, Notion will prompt you with a basic layout, but it's up to you to really build this into the layout that makes the most sense. So we have some cards here, but you can always add a new card in each column. You'll open up the card, and just as before, you'll start building out the card and you'll start building out the properties. So this card might be the first, welcome to day 1. You might add properties like the status, not started. You can even assign it to a specific person and select the people from this workspace. In my case, I added a property for urgency, and it was a select option. So this should be day 1. And then in the body of this card is where you can begin to add all of the information. So you can add basic text, like welcome to your first day. But then you can also say, please read maybe something like I mentioned, our mission statement. So I'm going to tag the mission document. Please read this document, and please read, and I'm doing @. And I can type the name of any other document that exists in Notion. And I can very quickly and easily build this out just by using my keyboard to type all of these commands. Once I've added this, I can build out all of the cards. I can determine how I want the columns to be organized. In this case, as you can see, the column are organized by the status, what's not started and what's in progress. But I actually want to flip that, and I want to say, can you group these columns? This is called a group by. Can you group them by the urgency? And now it's being grouped by the urgency, what's happening on day 1. These are under no urgency because I haven't added a date yet. But as long as I keep building out those properties, everything will automatically be placed in the right position. So after some time, as I mentioned, you build out all of these cards, you build out what a first 30 days might look like, and then it will end up looking something like this. As I mentioned. The cool thing about this is that it's templatized, so I can just pull it up to be used whenever I need it. In this case, we have this new onboarding template for Diego, and that's the one that I've shown you. But the next time that I need an onboarding template, I can just click on this button for a new onboarding template. I click on it, and then it will automatically populate this board for me. As you can see, it's automatically populated the same thing again, but it's reset everything back to not started, and then it's up to the candidate to start filling everything. You might be asking, what was that cool button that I just pressed that populated this new template? This is actually called a template button. So again, typing the / command, you can type template button, and it will just duplicate something that you've created once. So once you create the template one time, you can set it as a button, and it will just populate that template on the fly. So this is a template button. It's going to pop up this module, but don't be intimidated. It's just a one-time configuration. It's asking you, what do we name this button? So I'm going to name this button, as I mentioned, new employee onboarding. So that's the name of the button. You can see the preview right here. And then it says to drop any blocks that you want to be duplicated whenever the button is clicked. So I want that page, that entire board, to be duplicated whenever it's clicked. So I'm going to grab the board and I'm going to move it in here. Just going to delete this to-do item. And this is what should be populated each time the button is clicked. So I'll click close because I have configured this the way that I like. So here's the button, as I mentioned. And now that will always live there. Anytime that I click on it, it will take a second, but it will automatically populate that board that I dragged into it. And then it's up to me to just change the name from whatever candidate to the new candidate, and then share this board with them and have them follow along. I'll pause here for any questions on this. To me, this is one of the most exciting parts about Notion, is being able to templatize information that you're constantly repeating, and even be able to kind of bring everything together by interlinking it on this board for your candidate or for your employee. Someone is asking, if I create a template button on one page, can I create that same template in another page? That is a fantastic question. So if you create the button right here, the button lives right here, but you can duplicate it. So I can actually click next to this block. I can click on the button's kind of menu, and there's this option which says duplicate. Now it's going to duplicate another version of that button, and I can actually grab this block and I can drag it into any other page that I need it to live. So I recommend creating it once, then duplicating it, and then dragging this duplicated option onto any other page that you need it to exist. So it's not married to the page. You can duplicate it and move it anywhere else. So for your whole team, everybody can have access to this button. Okay, so these onboarding templates are obviously just one way to do it, and this is a more elaborate way. This assumes that you want to take your employees through a very elaborate 30-day process. Maybe this is something that you are not in charge of, and maybe this is something that their manager is in charge of. Maybe what you are in charge of is actually one step above that, which is just seeing the pipeline of all of the candidates that are currently being onboarded across all functions. There's another way to do that too. This not just one way, I just want to show the power of boards. You can adapt the boards to any kind of needs. So for example, onboarding pipeline, I can click into that. This is also a Kanban board. And as you can see, I can drag the cards anywhere. This is being grouped in this case by the status. So who's not started, who's in progress, and who's completed. So myself as the hiring manager or as just the people ops person, I have this zoomed out bird's eye view of all of the candidates that are currently being onboarded. And so I can open up the card, for example, Kate Lewis, who's on the marketing team. I can open up the card for her and I can see that she's currently being onboarded, and maybe my part of the responsibilities is just to make sure that she follows these basic checklist items. I can share this with her, have her complete these basic checklist items, and then we're all done. It's not a whole 30-day board. It's just a kind of one card situation where things can be checked off as they're completed. However, because as I mentioned, everything is linked in Notion, I can always say something like, once you've completed this checklist, please move on to your 30 days board. And then the 30 days board can be one of those onboarding templates that we've created in the past. I named the previous one Diego. Actually, let's just link to this one. And we can assume that I would have updated the name to Kate. But as you can see, it's pretty clear for this new hire what they need to do. They need to complete these checklist items on day one. This is my HR kind of responsibilities. And then I'll pass them on to that 30-day board that's linked here that might go with their manager. So this board is created as a bird's eye view pipeline of all of my candidates. I can take the responsibility of moving them along. So I can grab Kyle Miller and move Kyle from in progress to completed. I'll drag it there. It works just like any Kanban or Trello board. And now I know that Kyle's onboarding has been completed. If I were to open this up and see the various properties, I can see that the status was automatically updated to completed. Any questions on a zoomed in 30-day board that the candidate will see or that the employee will see versus a pipeline, which is maybe what you're seeing? Great. Cool. So I just want to end with, this was supposed to serve as a source of inspiration of things that can be built out in Notion. We really believe that setting up your systems like this is a great way to kind of optimize and automate everything and reduce the amount of replication or duplication of work that you're doing. It also reduces that kind of mental friction of switching between tools. You have everything living in one single place. And there's just an extreme amount of visibility and clarity in terms of what's getting done where and kind of what's the status of that. Using things like boards and galleries and different types of databases that we can create. You can have the onboarding template, you can have the onboarding pipeline, but that's not the limitation. You can even create things like an applicant tracker. I've worked with a lot of companies that have switched out of an HRS system and just put everything into Notion. And again, this is a board called Applicant Tracker. They've actually built this out to show each applicant. It shows the various stages that they're in, who's in the lead stage, the screen stage, or the interview stage. And again, because everything is a card, you can open that up. You can see all of the information about them, their location, their skills, the source that they came in from, and then any kind of notes or next steps that you need to compile within that card. And so based off of the basic structure of tables, boards, and then the properties that you can customize and create on the fly, you can really kind of summarize this information and slice and dice it however you need. Awesome. I'm going to take a look at the questions because I know we have a few minutes left. I see a question about can an applicant go there directly from their ATS system like Lever? A couple of things. I've seen companies that are using an HRS system and then they just link to the Notion document within that HRS to guide the candidate into Notion to take all of the next steps. But we do have an API that you can leverage if you want to do a direct integration with any of your systems. I have seen cases where the API helps connect information where if you add a net new entry into your application, then it creates that net new entry into Notion as well. Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions about how do permissions work and who can see what. I think that is a whole area of Notion. And we have lots of extensive kind of help articles to show how permissions work. But I can kind of give the basic summary about permissions in a minute. In Notion, we have this option in the top right, which is called our share menu. You can open the share menu, and then you can see how the permission levels have been set up for this particular page. For this applicant tracker, it has this access where everyone at fig.io, so everyone in the workspace, have full access. But you can slice and dice this however you need. So for example, let's say we have an HR team. We have a group of individuals that are in the HR group. I've established this permission group, and I want to give the HR team full access. And I actually want everyone else to only have can view access. So now in this particular setup, everyone in the company, everyone at fig.io, all 14 of us, only have can view access, but the 6 members in the HR team have full access. And they are the ones that can edit this document, share it with anyone else, and they have full and complete access. And so the way that permissions work is you can give permissions to entire teams, you can give permissions to subgroups that you've created, or you can give permissions to individuals. And between those permissions, you can set them up between can view, can comment, can edit, or full access. If I started a new page from scratch, for example, at the beginning of this demo, we started working on a very basic employee directory. I can go into the share menu, and right now I can see that everyone at the company has no access and only I have full access. So if I wanted to share this particular page with one person or maybe share it with the candidate, I can type their email. I'm just going to put my personal email here. And I can grant this person full access and I'll invite them. And in this case, they're being invited as a guest because they're not actually a member of my workspace. So now I can see that everyone at the company has no access. This guested person has full access to this page, and I also have full access to this page. So I just want to highlight that permissions can be done at the group level, at the individual level. You can give them, you can guest someone in if they're not a member, and then you can also determine whether they are getting view, edit, or full access. I don't want to spend too much time on that, just because I think that permissions need to be done however makes sense for your organization. And if something is very private, then don't share it with everyone, just share it with one person, or restrict it for everyone and give edit access to only one other person or one other group. And so that's something that you can do. I'm just taking a look at some of the questions. I answered this live. Cool, I know we're right on time. I do want to mention just 2 more things. Somebody asked about reminders and notifications. Reminders can be set on something. And so for example, on this card, let's say that I needed this to be completed on a specific date. I can add a property, which is called due date. I can turn this into a date property. And let's say this needs to be done by tomorrow. I can set a reminder on that. So I can set it on the day of the event, a day before, and so on and so forth, but I'll just send it on the day of the event. And now it's pretty awesome because this is due tomorrow, and it will also have a reminder at 9 a.m. tomorrow that this is due. So this can be leveraged really nicely to remind your employee and your candidate what needs to be done when, and it also gives them a notification in their inbox, in their Notion inbox, as you can see in this all update section. And it also gives you a notification because you've set the reminder. Awesome. I want to end with some information about how you can get started and kind of what you'll be receiving after this. Let me take one more look. There's a lot of questions about, again, permissions and how safe Notion is and how security works with Notion. So like I mentioned, I work with a lot of enterprises, a lot of large enterprises with really kind of advanced permission and security requirements. And so we do have an enterprise plan, which is the one that I recommend the most for teams of at least 100. Those teams who are on the enterprise plan will get a dedicated customer success manager like myself, who is there as the dedicated resource for any sort of training and onboarding purposes, as well as things like SSO, or like whatever your IDP provider is, advanced security settings around that, provisioning, deprovisioning accounts, and so on and so forth. And so I think that the enterprise plan is a good fit for those larger companies, and it makes collaboration a lot easier as you have a full members kind of team, and then you can group them into subgroups. And so I want to just take a moment to thank everyone. Okay, there's a lot of questions. A question about Okta. Yes, Okta works out of the box. We are on the Okta marketplace, and you can connect Notion with Okta immediately. For those of you that joined today, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know we're gearing up on the holidays now, and everything is kind of down to the wire, so I really appreciate the time. I wanted to let you know that for those of you that attended, and even the ones that didn't attend but registered, you'll be receiving a recording of everything that we did here today so that you can replicate it. You'll also be receiving templates based off what I built, and even some related kind of customer stories of customers who have been able to successfully implement this. So yeah, again, I'll thank you for the time. If you have one more second, I will, there's a poll that will be launched, and it'll just help us gauge who's interested in this Notion Enterprise Plan with more of the advanced features, and a dedicated customer success person like myself will be reaching out with more information. But otherwise, please share the recording with your colleagues that couldn't make it today. And I hope everyone stays safe and has a great rest of the year. Thanks.